So another kind of administrative issue you need to be aware of when we're doing modalities and using therapeutic agents is the FDA, so the Food and Drug Administration. The Food and Drug Administration actually does have jurisdiction over devices, medical devices. Um, so it falls under the FDA's Center for Devices and Radiologic Health. They look for safety, efficacy of the product, so making sure it actually does what the manufacturer claims. Goals to eliminate unnecessary exposure to radiation, electrointerference, if there's microprocessor in it, making sure that that is safe. And then obviously, the FDA is also responsible for drugs and over-the-counter drugs and prescription medications. So again, phonophoresis, iontophoresis, you'd be following FDA regulations for those medications. But talking about the devices, they mainly focus on devices that rely on a mechanism other than a chemical action. And any device that does that in order to diagnose, treat, prevent conditions in either humans or animals, all of that falls under the FDA. They label devices based on their risk, potential risk for humans. So a class 1 is the lowest risk, with a class 3 being the greatest risk. And they also take some devices and limit them to sale only to physicians or healthcare professionals. So for example, we're going to be talking about eSIM and specifically TENS units, which are portable units. They're meant for individuals to be able to use on their own at home. However, they only can be sold to healthcare professionals, and healthcare professionals have to teach the individual how to use them and make sure that it's safe and so on. So that's one example of that. In order to be FDA approved as a device, it goes through a really rigorous, what we call pre-market review. So before it hits the market, before it's available for physicians, there's a lot of testing and review of the literature and so on that goes through that, and companies have to apply for that process. During that time, it's what we call the investigational state. And so if a device has an investigational status put to it, it's usually not reimbursed by insurance companies. Okay, so they don't usually reimburse during that time. And usually you have to, in order to be using the device, you have to be following a really strict clinical protocol, whatever is the protocol that's being used to test the device. There are then also exceptions, because if you're going to be using something for research, for testing the device, you have to get Institutional Review Board or IRB approval. And so you have to get an investigational device exception in order to use those products on a human. And you'd have to prove a lot about what has been done previously and safety and so on. When talking about devices, not only are you concerned about FDA regulation, but also realizing that product liability comes into play. So if you use a device that ends up hurting someone, you, as the clinician, are probably going to be held negligent, held liable for that situation. Your employer probably will be named as well as the product itself, so the manufacturer and so on. And so they're going to try to prove that if used absolutely properly, this device is safe, and that the onus kind of falls on you to have used it incorrectly, or something like that. Up on the screen from your book is the labeling that the FDA requires. And so when you think about using devices, you want to make sure that these individual items are on the packaging or come with the equipment.